Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Our guest for today is Clarence Song. He's an artist, builder, and now an architecture student at University of Michigan. Clarence has had a really interesting journey. From working as freelance designer to a painter, he's been studying literature and exploring landscape architecture, and he even sold his home to return to school, and now he's pursuing his M.Arch degree. His entire story is all about reinvention, creativity, and lifelong learning. Before we start, a quick note. I know the video quality isn't perfect this time. The camera angles, editing is under progress, but I hope you enjoy the conversation. The ideas that we discuss, I hope you're able to capture them. So, in this conversation, we're going to talk about his path from art to architecture, his thoughts on education, well being, and creativity, and how he sees the future of education learning in a changing world. So let's dive in. Clarence, welcome to the show.
How did you choose your major?
Default, I actually started at landscape architecture as a freshman in Berkeley, but I chose that the day we were signing up for classes. I was just like, what sounds cool? Well, I was kind of artistic, so I was like architecture and then landscape. I was into nature, and so I signed up for those classes. But I ended up an English major only after being an undergrad for like maybe it was 6 or 7 years in. And I looked at all my credits and I had had English classes the entire time I was in college. Okay, so I was a landscape architecture major, then I was a political theory major, then I was a history major. But every time I had English electives. So after 6, 7 years of just aimlessly taking different majors and classes, I almost had an English degree. So I backed into it.
But you were somewhere connected into architecture from the very start of your career.
Yeah, probably because I was like the visual artist. I used to draw a lot when I was a kid. And then when I was in college at Michigan State, I met an art professor. He was a sculptor, but he was heavily invested in architecture. And so he taught me about the Bauhaus and Japanese architecture and do it yourself architecture. He was constantly working on his own. And so it was like having a sculptor architect mentor, basically.
So, like you said, like you like to draw, like
Yeah.
when you were a kid.
Yeah.
So, did that skill come naturally to you? Did you have to train for it?
I mean, people told me I was smart and I was talented my whole life because I did well in school and I could draw well. But I truly believe that anybody who did what I did and lived how I lived and had the parents I had would have been just as capable. So, no, I don't believe I have any special skills or talents. I think I just have done certain things and then whatever.
Most of the times, like you need like motivation to do stuff. There are like two type of motivations, intrinsic and extrinsic.
Yeah.
So did you feel like being an artist was mix of both for you?
Probably. I think it always is, right? And so I definitely enjoyed it. And so I would just draw for fun. But then it's great when your classmates or your parents or your teachers say, oh, look what you did. You're talented, and you believe them. Back then, I believed them. And so I thought, look. And so, yeah, that would encourage me. But most of it, I think, is just that I enjoy it.
I don't.
Yeah.
So, what would you recommend to the students, like young teenagers who are discovering this kind of enjoyment in their work and they are not able to? So, what are the tips? Like, because there's so many factors now, their grades, their work, their like salaries, their future, societal pressure. So, how do they discover their passion or their love for things like these?
That's a tough question. I don't think I could answer that, honestly. I don't know because I'm hesitant to give advice to young people because I'm not sure that I possess the knowledge, right? To be able to say, oh, you should do this or you should try that per se. But yeah, I would encourage people to find what they enjoy. I guess I do have kind of a theory though, which goes back to like when I was raised and when I started thinking seriously about being an artist. In the 80s, we kind of thought as a group of young art students and music students and writing students that you should do all of it. And so I think it's really important to be broadly based and to develop yourself as a cultured person, meaning, you know, watch movies, listen to music, go to music events, draw, paint, sculpt, write. And I think that is there enough time to do all that? Maybe not, but maybe you're doing other things with your time that aren't
That productive.
yeah, or that you could substitute out, like
Yeah.
social media time,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah,
I
very
think
true.
is a giant waste of time. I know that it's a resource for some communities, especially people who feel marginalized or lonely. I'm not trying to lecture people about it, but I do think that it's actually just a poor substitute for what they actually need.
And a balance, you would say there needs to be a balance in scrolling, looking at social media, and also working on your hobbies, skills, and passion.
Yeah, and it needs to be heavily weighted towards the latter. Yeah, I think social media in general, it's not only a waste of time, but when it's positive, it's low quality positive, and when it's negative, it's toxic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I probably link a lot of issues that your generation suffers from to things like social media, but also just the general kind of late capitalist culture that we all live in.
Is there a way you've been trying to avoid social media?
Yeah, I just stopped posting or communicating on Facebook, for instance. I probably, as a 50, you know, 6-year-old man before I came to school, was spending an hour and a half on Facebook every day, chatting with people, remarking, commenting, and posting, and I just cut that all out at some point because I was like, this is toxic. It's making me feel shitty.
So you would say one of the ways is to have a bold step and cut off social media.
Yeah, just dump it and do something analog. Draw, dance, make music.
And what do you think if authorities like government or universities, if they make laws to like to cut off social media out of people's life, what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't like the government making those decisions, but end of the day, it would probably be to your benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not doing anything good. The problem, though, is governments aren't doing that. What they're doing is shaping your social media content. Russia, China, now the United States, they're inserting themselves into the actual software and the algorithms such that they're not excluding you from it, they're not separating you from it, they're actually pulling you in, but in ways that support that government.
Did you follow up on Nepal protest?
Yeah, sure.
Like Nepal government trying to ban Instagram and Facebook, and the government was being removed, and the election was done on social media.
Yeah. I mean, social media and Gen Z are capable of overthrowing governments today. I think there's at least 3, 4 instances. East Timor, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, and the Indonesian government had to pull back on some policies. But also in Brazil, WhatsApp played an instrumental role in getting the far right elected, in the past decades.
So how would you say these authorities, like we can't give them the entire right to determine the social media? Should there be a basic framework how content should be used and shown, especially to the kids? Like I think Australian government tried to ban below 16-year-old kids from accessing social media.
I mean, I think governments have a role to play. Academia has a role to play. Parents have roles to
Yeah.
play, community leaders, public intellectuals. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that there's a lot you can do. Yeah, we live in that world now. We live in a digitized world, and
Mhm.
it's kind of it's like Pandora's box. You can't
Mhm.
really put shit back in the
Mhm.
box.
And everything is becoming so accessible with AI.
AI is gonna do some crazy things. I don't even want to speculate because I have other friends who are more involved in that, like ethics
Mhm.
and also doomsday kind of scenarios. And that to me seems a little out there, but I definitely think AI is corrosive. I think it's going to hurt education
Yeah.
a lot. I actually think I'm seeing it. And then I have a lot of friends who teach, and they certainly say that it's awful.
I do feel there's like so much potential, but if it's not guiding the right direction, as for international students, we use AI because English is not our first language. For reading, writing, understanding, we can't go to a dictionary every minute. So AI makes it more democratic.
I would push back on that though. Like, and I'll give you an example. I was reading some philosophy the other day for like a doctorate seminar, and it was very difficult reading. I could have just typed into AI, like, well, what is Althusser's, summarize Althusser's reading capital for me. But instead, I just struggled with it, not really understanding what I was reading, starting, stopping, wrestling. I had headaches. I got bored. I got sad. It took too long. It took like a whole extra day. At the end of the day, I didn't really get it. But I believe that all that struggle, all that work I did was actually productive for me, that it's work that I put in and it's work that was healthy for me to do. Had I just read that summary, would I have been able to just go to the class and the discussion and say something and like, this is what Althusser means? Yes, I could have. But is that actually helping? Did that democratize the discussion such that I now was on a level playing field with somebody who had read Althusser before? Perhaps, but I don't think it actually helped me. And I think as a foreign student, like if you're from mainland China and you don't speak good English, it's better to not understand what's going on and just struggle and to use that dictionary and to waste, in your mind this time and to be inefficient and slow. And eventually your English will be better than somebody who's using AI tools
That
to get them
makes
there.
that makes sense.
That would be my argument.
I agree with that. It's a struggle, but long term, it's gonna reap the benefits.
Yeah, it's what you actually want. You only benefit from struggle.
And what are your opinions about AI art? People are generating their paintings, drawings.
I mean, look, I'm a painter that believes in life drawing and still life and drawing from life with a pencil on paper and then painting using traditional methods and techniques. But I've seen amazing shit produced by AI, mind blowing stuff. And I like it a lot. And I think if that's what someone wants to buy as a commodity, because art is essentially a commodity, you've read M.Arch. But to me, I still would rather have a shitty painting made by hand. It's more meaningful. I can develop a relationship. No matter how pretty that digital image is, you're not going to see a lot of digital images on my wall. I love them. I love the work produced at Taubman using digital tools, renderings and, these layered, schematics and projections. But end of the day, I don't. First of all, AI is going to be able to do that shit. And second of all, is it really training your brain in the same way that making a bad drawing is? I don't think so. I believe in drawing.
It does train your mind. I remember like when I had my drawing classes, first I had to draw a cycle or car in half an hour. The next class, 15 minutes, next class, 10, then become 3 minutes. And then I was being told to do in 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
So these skills, I think they are so essential as a designer to think, to sketch on the spot, to put all your ideas on paper and discuss and evaluate. I think yeah, I can't really do that.
Yeah, and I wonder if using Rhino and Illustrator and Photoshop is actually going to help young designers produce really aesthetically strong work. I think it can, you know, obviously architecture is a complicated profession. There's a lot of things that go into it beyond that, right? The aesthetics. But to me, that component will probably suffer if you don't work your brain in like real basic kind of analog ways. But I could be wrong about that.
So what made you join architecture? Was there a very turning point? I know that you started as a landscape architect, but now doing masters in architecture. So how did you make that decision? Was there something that made you trigger or made you realize that you need to learn architecture?
Yeah, because I had a really good life. I could see, I was saving money and was very comfortable. I was not stressed by work. And I lost my business during COVID. And so I was trying to rebuild, and I had a couple like obstacles and failures. And I felt like not having a professional degree really limited me. And so on a lark, I applied to Taubman and I got in. And I luckily am extremely fortunate to have family support, and I had money in a house that I could sell to pay for school. And so I took this opportunity. Plus, I think I still feel really young, and I feel like I can still think and learn. And I didn't want to stop. I have a friend who I graduated high school with in 1984. He came here, did his B.Arch. He's a very successful architect. He lives in Manhattan. His office is in Madison Avenue. His name is on the door. And he's thinking about retiring. And I'm just starting, but I would rather be me than him.
Follow your own journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no timeline to education. Like everybody's like.
Well, the thing is there is, but it's like an ideology, right? That's imposed from without, and then it's internalized. So a guy like you might feel like, oh shit, I'm like 25 and I'm sitting next to a 22-year-old. I'm like older, and you start thinking, oh well, I should be having babies and buying a house and all this. And so all these things start clinging to you and sticking to you, and these expectations kind of start to, maybe they'll even contribute to you judging yourself. Like, oh, I should be like a architect by the time I'm 35.
Yeah.
I don't have that burden.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's like an additional stress. And like personally for me, when these thoughts come in my mind, I'm not able to stay in the present moment. I'm just thinking about the future, and then it's a whole loop.
Yeah.
Like this is the age I need to get married. This is the age. Then I'm like, why?
Why? There is no good answer, to tell the truth, outside of, like you say, extrinsic expectations in how you've internalized them.
So you talked about your business. Was it like in the artistic or architectural venture, and like when in the times were stressful?
It was never stressful. I've been a freelance artist for most of my life, but I was doing informal architecture. I was designing things, building things, working on houses, painting.
Do you feel like your freelance experience or your business is helping you right in your degree?
Yeah, because I've worked as a carpenter, I've worked as a architectural painter, I've flipped houses, I've done interior designs, I've done landscape designs, I've made paintings and sculptures. I mean, and I made architectural models just for fun, So yeah, all that feeds directly into what I do here.
So are you able to also like filter out in the curriculum what's bullshit and what's not? What's your priority? What's useful in the profession in your life? And what's like you don't really know?
No, I don't think like that. I think what makes me a different student is every moment in front of every teacher with every material that's being presented is for me an opportunity to learn. And so, like, for instance, even the way you frame your question, I don't frame that way because I don't have this thing of like, oh well, I want to work for a certain kind of firm. Like I want to work for Gensler or Skidmore Owens or some small creative firm in Chicago. I'm not thinking about that. I'm just in the moment thinking about what I'm going to put into it such that I'm learning. Students, I think I hear a lot of complaining about pedagogy and curriculum. And I don't complain because it doesn't matter what it is. I could go to a class and the teacher could say, take off all your clothes and do an interpretive dance based on what you ate for breakfast. And I would be like, okay, I'll put my whole soul into this exercise and I'll just suspend any doubts I have about its utility or its purpose. And I'm confident that I'll get something else. That's my attitude.
Beautiful. Because in my head, I'm always figuring out and sorting that what works for me and what doesn't. And that's how I try to like balance, but it just changes my entire perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think your concerns are valid, right? Because this is a transactional world we live in, and you're paying money to go here, and you want to get something out of it, right? Like when I buy a shirt, I want it to look good. I want it to keep me warm. I want it to last. Those expectations are real. But I think, again, you could benefit from focusing more on just putting the transaction aside and just focus on the work that you're actually doing. And ultimately, at this school, I believe every class I've had is beneficial. I really do. And so, like here's another dialogue I hear a lot is because I'm older, I talk to teachers a lot, right? In conversational ways. And the structures teacher will say, well, we don't emphasize structures enough. Kids don't really understand how to build a deck, on the second story and wrap it and seal it and this and that. And then the environmental teacher will say, well, kids don't really understand insulation and our values and you values. And, this is not being emphasized enough. And then the theory teacher is like, oh, this is all about capitalism and producing robots for corporations. And then the real estate teacher's like, this is all about theory and Marxism and sociology and anthropology and philosophy. And that's not going to help you in the real world. Students are asking questions about, is this practical? Am I wasting my time? Teachers are asking questions about like, well, why aren't my, pedagogical concerns being, pushed or prioritized? But for me, I'm like, it's all good. Whether I'm taking a Marxist theory class of architectural history right now. I'm taking professional practice. Those are almost diametrically opposed. But to me, they're both fantastic. And I'm getting a lot out of them because I'm putting a lot into them. I'm putting my own energy and work into them. And so I do benefit from everything.
Because everything is so diverse. And I think you get to explore. But how do you narrow down what you want or what you relate or connect to?
One of the teachers here who is a much younger man than me, he's probably 40 and he has a PhD. He gave me this advice, which was specialize. Find one niche within the curriculum. Find one thing and focus on that. And I nodded, but I disagree. I think architecture is really broad, and I think that you should learn as much as possible, study as broadly as possible, and then try to parlay that into whatever it is you're trying to do, which could be like more education. Like I'm considering getting a master's in urban. I'm looking at getting a PhD, but I'm also going to be applying for jobs at firms, maybe even big, because it doesn't matter to me what I get into. So, am I going to be a jack of all trades that's unprepared for any one thing? It's possible, but I'm kind of
You're keeping all the opportunities open.
I feel like I am, and I have a faith that as long as I'm putting in work at Taubman, that Taubman's set up to produce a master's graduate that is going to be capable in different arenas. I might not have all the skills, like I'm not learning Revit, right? So there's a lot of companies that are going to be like, oh, well, we really need you to learn Revit, but I think I could learn that in a summer.
Yeah,
I'm not
true.
I'm not sweating.
So did you feel like you had like enough resources to learn back then?
Oh yeah. And maybe more because we were asked to read books. For instance, I took a community college class that was a term, not a semester. It was only 12 weeks. And we read 2,000 pages. We read 600-page novels, basically.
Was it because you were in literature? Or was it because like everybody was doing?
Everyone was doing it in all the humanities, at least. So I took a lot of philosophy and a lot of history, and then a little anthropology, stuff like that. Yeah, you were usually going to read between 1,000 and maybe 2,000 pages of literature in a 4-credit class.
Do you feel like it was as stressful as it right now?
No, not even close.
Was it more?
Way less. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but part of the stress I feel here at Taubman is it's related to the curricula, but it's related to the culture as well. I never had panic attacks or a lot of anxiety when I was in, but I had a problem with depression too. So there were times when I was definitely an honor student most of the time, but then I had semesters or terms where I did really badly. I just, whatever, it couldn't be helped. We didn't understand things like mental health in the same way that we do now.
But like back then, mental health was not a topic everybody knew or discussed, but was religion, spirituality, culture supported mental health in
The practice of figuring out that I have depression. But even then, I didn't really understand what that meant in the way that you could understand it now from just watching TikTok or Instagram reels.
And did you have access to psychiatrists?
No, because it really, I think mental health was something that wasn't really discussed unless you had a real crisis. And then it would have been hushed up and it would have been shameful. Both from the perspective of having Korean parents who are immigrants, but also just within the culture as a whole.
What was your coping mechanism?
Drinking, beer, writing. I kept a journal when I was depressed. Sleeping. I slept up to 15, 16 hours a day for months at a time when I was depressed, and smoking pot, which probably didn't help, but in some ways.
In the moment it helps, maybe not in the long term.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so.
And being a literature student, did you feel like you were able to express yourself through literature, reading, writing, that journal?
Yeah. I kept really detailed long journals. I might write 8 pages. I don't know how many. It's probably at least a couple thousand words in a night, just about how I was feeling. But I definitely felt isolated. I gravitated towards other artists and bohemians, and there was a sense that other people around me were suffering from depression and alienation, I guess you could say, if you want to be Marxist about it. But in a more general sense, it was the 80s, which was kind of the advent of neoliberalism. So America, where I grew up, was coming out of kind of, to me, a golden age, right? The 60s and the 70s were all about opening and feeling and thinking. And then the Reagan era felt really oppressive. So most of my friends were artists and punk rockers and rebels. My father was also an activist. And so, yeah, I was expected to go to great schools and become a professional of some type. So that was just understood, actually.
And around your city or the state, was there like some profession was looked at and some profession was looked down? Was there any?
I mean, for sure, I grew up in a waspy neighborhood, like white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It was the wealthiest kind of suburb in my city. And it was expected that you would go to a good school, especially that the top students in the school were expected to go to Stanford or Michigan, was a popular destination for the good schools. A lot of kids were from the business class, and they were more interested in partying in college because they figured they would just have a job and a career anyway. Yeah, family or whatever, get into a corporation. Back then it was different because you just expected, even if you were a hippie studying English, you still expected that you could get any type of job you wanted for the most part.
1980s and now, do you think your approach towards learning has changed? And also, like, does grades still matter to you?
Grades matter a lot because I'm Korean American. So, yeah, I want to get an A in every class and I want to be top of my class all the time. But I don't really sweat that because one of the differences between who I am today and who I was is I understand that those are like goals, help me do my best, but my real concern is just the work I put in, that I'm constantly working and constantly trying and attaining and taking care of myself, though. Right. Yeah. So now I am different. Like, I'm concerned about, am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating right? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Prioritize your self-care and also the work. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I would say work really hard. And then when you start getting tired, rest. That's the bottom line. And then get up and start working again. There's a lot of, it's easy to get distracted. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest obstacle I think most students are going to face. But you're here and you're paying a lot of money. So you're only getting value when you're working hard. So I'm all about hard work, but I'm also about taking care of yourself. And that means, like, let's say, like right now I'm preparing for a midterm. I worked really hard the past couple of weeks. I'll work really hard tonight. But then when I'm tired, it's just, that's what I'll live with, and it'll actually be okay because I have been working hard. So I might want to work till 4 a.m, but I'll go to bed at 1 if that's what my body's telling me.
Okay.
And I'll listen to my body in that instance.
I think listening to your body and not over exhausting yourself is the starting point where you first label your feelings, emotions, your whatever is happening in your body. What I learned was in a deep meditation state, you get to know what's happening inside.
Yeah.
That's your like start point. Okay. Your body, stomach is giving issues. Feel why. Is it stress? Is it lack of sleep? And gradually, slowly work on it. For the grades, do you still get family pressure to get good grades?
No, but yes, because, like, for instance, my mom was a valedictorian every school she ever attended. And I'm talking about, she went to like a competitive girls' middle school, a competitive high school, a competitive college. Then she got her master's. She was a 4-point student the whole way. So, it's hard not to have that hang over your head. Yeah. But for me, it's a positive thing, right? It's something that I try to do. But if I don't get there, I don't dwell on that as long as I put in the work. I'm just concerned with trying to get there. not actually achieving it.
Family don't have expectations, but if my grades go down, they get worried. I don't want to worry.
Yeah, but you have good grades.
I've been doing decent. I don't think there's there's any course that I feel like I deserve a little better, but I'll work hard. I'll do better. I'll look at my mistakes, and I always try to go back to professor and ask like what went wrong. If you can give me honest feedback. Architecture, you have practiced architecture more informally. So see, there are like long hours and uncertain pay. It's super common in this field, even as an artist as well. So how did you build that resilience?
I guess for me, there wasn't a lot of pressure of having a boss per se. So if I had to put in a lot of time doing a design, I didn't mind because it was enjoyable. I wasn't working under pressure. So I can't really answer that question in a way.
And like in today's studio, what suggestions would you tell the professors? How can we make our studios better for learning and well-being?
I don't know, because I feel like studio is super stressful. I can't figure I think only part of it is the professors and the workload. I think part of it is the students themselves. And then part of it is the culture in which we live.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think they could actually ask for more work and things could be less stressful if we didn't live in late capital.
So you are currently designing architectural school. What are you thinking? How can we like make changes in the culture?
Well, for sure. I mean, that thesis class allows you to do kind of different things, but I'm not trying to design a model of architecture. Like I'm not aiming at designing the perfect architecture school or one that's profitable or that is going to last forever or that generates a certain amount of cash or attracts the best students. I want to design actually almost the opposite, a small school where kids learn architecture, but they're doing it in ways that have been forgotten or underemployed. So in my school, I envision things like reading literature, drawing pictures, painting, sculpting, but also design build, like having to swing a hammer and having to paint a wall and really physical stuff that embeds the student in like the actual construction. I think that that's important for me, but I'm not designing a curriculum that all students are going to want or that say if you want to go work at a corporation and build a stadium, for instance. I have a friend who designs stadiums. That's great. He got 3 degrees from MIT. He's a partner at a top 10 global firm. But would he benefit from going to my school? Maybe not. It wouldn't have taken him to that career.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not trying to design the architecture school for everybody. Yeah, I'm more concerned with like a radical school, radical in the sense of fundamentally different that produces a different type of perspective, a different worldview in a way, a different like way of seeing what you're doing.
Are there any schools like globally that you see which correlates with your ideology?
I mean, I'm studying a bunch of different schools now. Beatriz Colomina wrote a book called Radical Pedagogies, and a lot of the little experiments in that book were short-lived, but some of them I'm trying to borrow from.
I'm excited for your thesis.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's great. I get to tell everybody what to do and how to think.
Like this thesis narrative is so relatable because you are actually living that.
I thought it would be popular.
And maybe it's because it's happening for the first time.
Yeah,
that's
a little specific, but for me, it's been really interesting, and just to relate back to what we were talking about earlier, we've been given readings about like the history of architecture schools and then the history of radical experiments in architecture schools and all this stuff I didn't know. And so I love that I now know it, right? And it shines a light on what I've been doing here. It shines a light on a lot of things. But if you ask me, it hasn't been a lot of reading, But if you ask all the other students in the class, they'll say this is a lot of reading. But that to me is weird because we haven't read a single book. We've read articles and chapters of books. And so, I just don't get that.
You were trained to read 2000
in a semester. I read Kant and Hegel and Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. That assigned me beyond good and evil. I'll read it. It's what we used to do.
You told like you sold your house for this degree. It's a huge decision.
Huge.
It sounds like you see education as a long-term investment, a kind of security through knowledge rather than having a property.
I think so. Also, I was thinking, if I'm going to get a master's from Taubman, I don't think I want to go back to Lansing and practice architecture. I loved Lansing. I loved my house. It was like I was spoiled in my, opinion. But no, I don't know about investment. There is an investment element to it, but it's basically more like at my age end game. Like, what do I want to spend my 60s and my 70s and possibly my 80s doing? And I didn't want to just keep parlaying and getting, small informal work in architecture, or I didn't feel productive as an artist because I wasn't. Fine art is like having a small business. There's a lot of self-promotion. There's a lot of labor, and I wasn't getting that done either. So, I was like, why don't I take this opportunity? Maybe I'll never work in architecture too, but the 3 years I've spent here have been tremendous for me, I think.
Do you feel like the lifelong connections and relationships you have built, are they going to help you in your future business, or like some those connections in some way, like networking when you efforts?
Yeah, because I already have friends I've known for 40 years that they work in architecture, academia, architecture criticism, museums, business. I mean, there's a lot of interest among my circle from college to work with me in some capacity, in some collaborative capacity. So
how building those relationships over decades, and keep investing that energy in them so that they don't die out or fade out. So what was your intentional effort in building them?
It's not really intention. It's more just the love, right? Because if I'm not interested in somebody, I'm going the other way. Like, I'll let that thing die on the vine. No, I only really have to, or put my energy into people that I value and love, and that I feel are giving me the same back. That's something that actually made going to school really difficult for me, because I've encountered some problematic personalities at school. And in my old life, I would just walk away. But you can't here, right? You're in class. This is your teacher, or this is your GSI, and this is your co-working student. You just have to bite down and do it. Ultimately, that's been a really good lesson for me too, because you can't always choose your collaborators, right?
Like, one of the things I've learned, like how to having a mental health, peaceful mind, coexisting in the same place, maybe working with them. So I think that's,
you want to develop the skills of coexistence, right? Because it's like in diplomacy, you're not negotiating with your friend, you're negotiating with your enemies. So not that you have enemies here or at your future office, but those skills come in handy when things are difficult, is just to say. So I think that that's really healthy for me. And I do want to work collaboratively. I really believe in collaborative projects. When I look at architecture, I see it in them. I see that, there were people working together, bringing their different things into this project. And I think that's really exciting.
So how do you feel about the leadership in architecture, like businesses, where we have like star architects and they have a very authoritative nature? They have typical style which they want to enforce on the client and stuff. So how do you, like, what's your opinion about them?
I mean, it depends. Some people, I don't think you should be making expensive architecture if you can help it. I saw a recent project by Renzo Piano's studio. He's a star architect. He built this like cultural center museum in Istanbul, and he brought it in for like 40, $50 million. And for what it is, the square footage and the thing, I mean, it was like a fraction of the cost that someone like Bjark might do, or or Zaha Hadid. So that to me is important as well. If you have an unlimited budget and you have like some kind of oil money or some type of extractive mineral money behind you, yeah, you better, do a good job. And it's probably going to be an amazing building, but not, every project has that. And I don't think projects should have. I think capitalism is a disease and it's consuming our planet and it's robbing people of their souls, to be frank. And so that's a big part of the architectural culture. And I think in general, it's harmful and it's best that it just dies. I'm a fan of great architects and great beauty, but I think a lot of architects are just essentially captured and servants of capital. And that to me is gross.
Do you feel like as architecture students, they see these popular architects as celebrities and they hero worship them? Do you support that kind of?
Absolutely not. No, I think that that's really awful, but that's the world we live in. Capitalism is dominant, and it structures how you think. It structures how you see everything, including yourself, how you relate to everything, how you think. It shapes your dreams and your ambitions. It does everything. It's ideology, the ideology of ideologies. And so I actually think what's great about Taubman is that we study a lot of theory, or I guess it depends, that pushes back on that. And I don't know.
Like notice that you are able to develop ideas on the spot, even in like time crunch. So, what advice would you give students who tend to overthink and are like hesitant in starting to design a thing?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I have really thought about that.
Because one of the like memories I have was in rep. I think it was one of the first time I met you.
Yeah, that
And
was.
like while we were giving our presentations, you were sketching in the notebook, and in the end you pinned up, and like it was such a great review. But it was so inspiring where you were able to think, analyze, and make stuff on the spot within that 1 2 hour time crunch, and it just felt like it felt like you weren't overthinking, you weren't seeing time as an issue. I think that was super inspiring.
Oh, that's cool. I think that I just have a lot of experience, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm approaching classes and ideas and representation differently.
You're more open and accepting.
I think so.
You're not sick. You're not insecure or scared, but if this idea goes wrong.
Yeah, I do have anxieties around like trying to, I want to argue for and win people over. On the other hand, I'm like, I understand a lot of ideas are kind of radical and they're coming from left fields. Yeah, kind of ahead of time, I'm like, okay, don't expect more than two. I guess I'm okay with that.
Ask Tamar a similar question in the last interview. Since you have a strong artistic identity, I'm just curious, like, what's your take on how architects should present themselves through fashion in studio environments, like linking art and fashion?
Yeah, I love fashion, and for me, it's an opportunity to express kind of who you are, and you are no matter what. But I also like to push back on expectations. Like, so there's certain architectural styles that are considered acceptable. I don't want to ever dress like I'm expected to dress. That for me cuts against that whole kind of the artistic element that architecture, I guess, still holds out, at least for me. But yeah, fashion is related to architecture. It's an opportunity every time you get up and you get dressed to kind of make just a tiny little statement, yeah, I'm all about it. I think some people think that I dress inappropriately for my age, and I love that. And so, anytime I feel that, then I'm more likely to lean into it. People are just too conformist, whatever. If that makes them feel good or comfortable, then I understand that's valid, but I'm not to do
Impress
that.
somebody else. It's
No.
more for you.
It is a lot for me. It is a lot for me. I feel like I have a certain standard and I have a certain I just have a certain desire to project
Yes.
like, yeah, something that's different.
You want
I,
to create your perception in the market.
I don't know about the market unless you mean the social market, maybe, or the meat market. But the marketplace, not so much. I will probably adjust my clothing to lean towards more black and business casual if I'm working in a certain environment. But if I'm teaching and doing like doctoral work, then I'll just feel free to dress how I want to.
So,
Yeah.
and what's your opinion about people who wear like sweatpants, sweatshirt for their final reviews? Also because they haven't slept the entire night. But
Yeah.
do you think people, when they're going into real business, the reality is going to hit them?
No, I think they're going to change. I think that they'll find out very fast and they'll get corrected and disciplined very quickly if they fuck up because everything's different when there's money on the table.
Yeah.
There's no money on the table in your review. I do think that it's disappointing that kids wear sweatshirts with university insignia on them, though. Just every day. Any day you do that, I'm disappointed in you, frankly. I'm sorry to say.
I have the same opinions. Like,
Yeah.
I did not buy a souvenir like a sweatshirt with M and stuff, but I got one through one of our
Yeah, I got some free ones.
Yeah,
I gave them away.
Oh,
I'm not interested in shilling for anything. I would say if your sweatpants are really stylish, then I'll approve. But if you're just like being sloppy or whatever, that's not me.
like one thing I've realized, if you're wearing like the AMP sweatshirt somewhere outside Michigan, you're in a different state or city.
Yeah.
If somebody is from that same university, it gets to point out and then have a conversation.
Yeah, there's that.
So I think that's a beautiful, like in India, we don't have.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That could be really positive.
Because recently, like I was talking to my friend and like they were in an AI summit and she was wearing that M sweatshirt and she met Ishan and like Anya. They just pointed out, oh, you are from Michigan.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna wear it outside Tubman, but not in Tubman.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. I never even thought about that. But yeah, U of M probably will give you a lot of networking opportunities.
So how do you like intentionally connect with professionals for your future business or something? Do you go for networking events?
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go to this job fair thing coming up in November. But I've just been focused on my classes. I live day to day and I just try to get work done to get as much sleep as I can.
So art helps with self-expression. Is it same for architecture? So how do you connect your personal expression with community-driven designs?
Yeah, I'm doing kind of Marxist inspired low cost housing, right? With planning initiatives that are attempting to make life slightly more livable for people on the margins. But I think that I would, within whatever budget you have, try to make as beautiful a statement as you can. I mean, you can work with garbage and scrap material and make sculpture. So I think you can make a beautiful building with cheap material.
Are you able to express your emotions and feelings through architecture?
I always try, even if it's super minimalist. And most of the work I've done in studios, I've been very unhappy with in a personal way because I haven't been able to bring my creative aspirations as well as my theoretical kind of thinking that I put into it into digital digitally represented design. So that's still like a hurdle for me.
What is needed by the community?
First, for
Comfort.
sure. Yeah, end of the day. Yeah, I mean, there's times when you want to override people as an artist, though, like where you're like, oh, I want to do this, and then the community says, oh, well, would you, make that look more like a barn and paint it pink? So at that point, I think you have to your artistic sensibility or your aesthetic instincts to say, no, I know better. Like, yeah, there's certain questions you know better, but then in general, though, you are designing for a community, at least in your framing. So to have a lot of input, if not more input than you.
Do you feel like communication is the key here? Where if you understand like they're not making the best decision and you have the expertise.
Yeah, communication, legibility, and persuasion. Make a design and then I render it and then I make these beautiful graphics that explain it. I'm trying to sell it to a client. And yeah, that's another reason to read and write more and take those things seriously, even if they don't seem relevant. I feel like everything is I know, and it's doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense.
So these communication skills, how do you think you intentionally taught yourself these skills?
Yeah, because like growing up, I was around so many dynamic people and conversationalists. I realized that conversation is an art. Just like writing short stories, you would consider that an art. Well, why would you not consider speaking to somebody an art? And whether or entertain your friends at the bar or maybe sell yourself in some type of professional setting, it's like it helps if you have like techniques and skills and you've worked on those things, right? Like absolutely.
What sources or like in what way did you self-taught these skills?
I think I just paid attention to what I thought was good communication, and then you just enter into conversations as much as possible. Like I was just attracted to people who are really well spoken and entertaining. And I'm like, I want to be well spoken and entertaining. And then also like, oh, he's really funny. I want to be really funny. So I'm spending a lot of time with these people, listening to them anyway. And that in a sense, hopefully I can be those things. I'm a little didactic. I tend to go on, and I'm really into theory and thought.
Thank you so much for joining this interview.